We're here today to talk to you about some amazing women for HERstory, for Women's History Month. But it's her story, not his story.
I like her story.
I do too. And this book is one that Jay recommended to me, and we don't actually have the book because it's so popular.
It's checked out. Always checked out.
Out of the library and my classroom library. And it's called The Diamond Eye by Kate Quinn. And it's about a woman who was Soviet, Russian,
Ukrainian, but she considered herself Russian, and she was considered the deadliest female sniper
during World War II.
during World War II.
She had 313 kills, although probably more because there's a whole structure for how
For sure.
it has to be
But
confirmed.
that was how many was recorded. But it was a fascinating story, and as we were reading this story, we kept just like calling each other,
Yes!
contacting
I
each
just
other,
saw this
like,
thing.
I just got to this chapter.
What does this mean? I had to go look this up.
But she was so amazing because she had a mathematical mind.
Yes.
So when she would make these kills, she was factoring in the way the wind's gonna blow, the velocity of the bullet. I mean, she was phenomenal.
And then she went on to get a PhD in history and became a history professor.
And the also coolest part was that she also she ended up coming to the U.S. and for a tour.
And became best friends with Eleanor Roosevelt. Really?
And that part was so wonderful and so charming.
And they traveled across the country, including to Detroit.
But the one part that I guess that really stuck with me as a female soldier, she's got her weapon, but they also give her a gun. And they say to her, if you were captured, there is a bullet in there for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a female soldier, there's always that fear that something very awful is going to happen.
Yeah.
And that fear was there the whole time you were reading it. You felt like you were there with her.
Absolutely.
Fabulous read.
So this book is Stealing Buddha's Dinner, and it is written by a Forest Hills grad. She graduated from Northern, and I read this some time ago, but she is a Vietnamese immigrant. And it's a story about immigration and about fitting in. Yeah. And it's right here in Forest Hills. She graduated from Forest Hills Northern. So and the food in it is fabulous.
Yeah. And we often tell our stories through food.
Yes.
Oftentimes we make food that our grandparents made.
Mm-hmm.
They're making food that their parents made. I have a beautiful garden. When my grandma would come to my house from Kentucky to Michigan, she would want to see my garden. So much of my family's history and your family's history.
Yes, absolutely. I have
the way you
beans
grow
that have been growing,
Yeah.
that we've been saving the seed since 1918.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. So that's one of them.
Another local woman, really, right?
Yeah.
So this is Cobble Beauty School, and this was the book that I just adored. And so this book is a little different. I guess local is she's from Holland.
Yeah.
And during the Afghan war, we sent groups of doctors and medical people over to help, and she wanted to go help, and she was an actual hairdresser. So they thought, well, what could she do? And she was going to do a few puppet things. Well, it turns out a hairdresser is very popular when all the hair salons have been closed. And she became this very phenomenal helper, and all the women wanted to know her. And
then she married a man who was there, and she comes back and forth.
And the part that I really loved was that she was a local person that thought she didn't have any skills, and she figured out the depth of who she was in her character. And
Absolutely.
She made such a difference by being a hairdresser.
Yes.
Yeah, so that part was really awesome. I loved it.
And then this book, oh my gosh, again, another book Jay told me I needed to read. And it's Daring to Drive. And I thought I understood what it meant to be a woman in Saudi Arabia. I have no idea. I had no idea.
Excellent nonfiction book.
She is arrested for driving.
Yeah.
She ultimately has to leave the country because she can't drive. She loses her job. She's an engineer.
She works for an American company, and she's an engineer.
Well, it's a Saudi company now.
Okay.
It's been bought out, Aramco.
Okay. Sure.
And so she's not allowed to live on the Aramco complex anymore. She can't live alone outside, and she can't drive to work. So,
and if she has medical emergency, she has to count on her dad,
who's on the other side of the country,
or her brother who is newly married and he had a young baby,
and was working in like Bahrain.
Right.
He's a geologist.
And she decided she was going to drive because she at one point she was walking and was catcalled and things were dangerous, and she decided, I'm going to drive, and that was enough to get arrested.
And spent days in jail. It's highly recommend this book. And this one?
Nickel and Dime by Barbara Enrin, how do you say it? What do you think?
Enrich,
So
I
this
think
book
she's a
was
communications professor.
fascinating because as a professor, she decided she was going to try to live on minimum wage jobs, the kind of minimum wage jobs that women with low education have. So she was a maid, she was a waitress, and
She worked at Walmart as
and
like
she
a
actually
clerk.
she actually lived the life where not just I'm gonna go
Mhm.
back to my next house, but I'm living in a place where I pay rent by the month. And what it was like for her to live this life as a very low wage earner, not making enough, not making a livable wage.
But not enough to actually collect food stamp, or too
Yeah,
much to
yeah,
collect food
yeah,
stamps,
yeah.
but not enough to
Yeah.
actually feed yourself and stay
yeah.
alive.
And the last book that we have, which we just love, this was a donated book to us, and boy, did it come at a great time. It's called The Female Lead by Edwina Dunn. This is volume 2. But this is a lovely book full of just amazing stories by amazing women. Just almost like little short vignettes about just amazing women around the world. And I just think this would be a fabulous book to check out, to even take a look at while you're here. So we have lots of wonderful books on display.
Really amazing books, and we would love for you to come in and
Check
get
out an amazing book.
about her story.